do in that situation is to just be very empathetic to what they're going through, and coming to them and just from a good place, a good heart. And I think you have to talk and listen, really listen to them and what they're going through as far as, you know, selling the house, because it can get really messy. I've dealt with many divorced couples, and I think really talking to them, listening to them, digging deep into what their maybe what their challenges are that they're facing throughout this process, because everybody feels differently as they're going through it. Somebody might be super happy, somebody might be super depressed. So I think just understanding and being empathetic to what they're going through, I think, is probably the biggest thing. And then just making sure that they understand that if they want to talk to me individually, that I need to honor that and respect their privacy with even between couples, between the couple as well, as long as it's something that doesn't need to be disclosed. I think is really important to do as well.
You think that there is a good way where if you know a couple getting divorced, is there a way where you can also like help her get her own place, help him get his own place, as well as sell their home all in one without there being a lot of conflict? And how would someone navigate that? Like, have you guys ever dealt with that? And is there a good way where it's like, okay, I think I got this. I think we can.
I think, again, just keeping things private between them. And I have done that before a couple times where they've sold their house and then they each bought with me. And it's hard to even say how you, it's just building that rapport with them and helping them understand that you're there to help them get to their next spot in life without feeling like you are taking sides. So that's the big thing, is you don't want them to feel like you're on one side or the other. You're representing one better than the other. So it can be tricky if you want it to be, I guess. It hasn't been for me. It's been rather smooth. So I don't know. Yeah.
Melanie, I would say that there's something else that could be considered as well. Half of my listings are with my business partner, Sherry Welly. And in the divorce situations, that has proven to be extremely advantageous, because we will just talk to them and it becomes pretty obvious which of the two partners is going to be more attracted to me versus Sherry and connect with us. And then we decide to split those responsibilities. If you're having trouble and you've got a difficult divorce situation and one of the two is not getting along well with you, I'd encourage you to pick up somebody else to help you, someone else from the office, and then you can split those responsibilities and keep those clients, because oftentimes they'll divorce and you'll end up finding a house for one of them, but the other one didn't like you and didn't like the wife or the husband, and they're out.
Right. Right. Very good.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
There's only like 100 and some people watching. That's a big one.
Okay, all right. Seller says, you seem so busy on social media. How much time can you actually invest into showing my home, doing open houses, and actually being available? How can I be your main priority when you have so many other clients? You reply to this. Well, I would say, I think I can answer this one. I try to always get ahead of this conversation. So initially, when I'm sitting down and doing my listing presentation, we talk about customer satisfaction, how it's really, really important to have the customer satisfied. And I go through, you know, I can show you how our numbers are better, how our days on market is less. But ultimately, it comes down to really good communication. So even if I have bad news for you, good news, whatever, I'm going to make sure I communicate with you. And you're right, we do have a lot of clients, we have a lot of stuff going on. But that's why I've surrounded myself by great people, and all these people on my team are smarter than I am. They can handle all these incidental things. It doesn't need my direct attention, but that gives me more time to focus on you directly and what is important, and communicating to you clearly and concisely with good news and sometimes bad news, but to help us get over the hurdle. And so, yes, we are very busy, and the only way I'm able to achieve that is with people that I've surrounded myself with and the support that I get. But one thing I can guarantee is if you call, text, or email me, I'm going to get back to you as quick as I can. I'm not going to be one of those agents that lists the property and then you never hear from them again. So that's one thing I can promise. That's one thing I can control.
And will we be working with you or someone on your team?
That's a great question, Rick. You'll be working directly with me on all the stuff that's really important, but all the incidental things and all the little parts of the business that, you know, have to be done on social media posts, different things that happen, my team's going to help facilitate that. So I'm kind of the quarterback of the team, but I got a lot of people on the team that are helping. And when it comes to our relationship, you're dealing with me directly. Now you will hear from them once in a while on some paperwork that needs to be signed and different things like that. But if you need to reach me, got all my details, and I'm going to hopefully be reaching out to you before you need to reach me, but and be proactive with that. But you'll be able to reach me.
Where do I sign it?
Now, are they hearing pretty good on? Are they hearing pretty good on the screen? Do we know?
This is pretty nice.
Yeah.
Thumbs up. Hopefully they can hear us.
My son's coach sells real estate on the side, and he always reminds us of that. So we feel bad not using him. He even offered to give us a free estimate. What is your reply? So I've had this kind of come up in like when I'm sitting at the table, and then I just go back to, well, I'm here now. Let me work to earn your business. That's what I'm here to do. And I kind of just go right around it and then don't really address it ever again. I was telling Graham at the beginning, I don't feel like I fight for listings very hard until I'm sitting at the table. Then I guess I do without really thinking I do. I have had this come up recently when they're just reaching out to kind of set the appointments. And this year, what I'm finding is I'm not having issues at the appointment signing, but like last week I had 3 people reach out and then we didn't even get to the appointment. I was like, oh, we signed with someone else. We did this. And so I'm having to shift gears at that point. So if they said, well, we're also meeting with our son's real estate or our son's coach who sells real estate on the side, I would say, that's great. I think you should get opinions from as many people as you feel like you need to get opinions from. I'm hopeful that at Tuesday at 1 p.m. we can chat and you'll be able to understand why you should hire me.
So it sounds like if you get the appointment, your chances are significantly increased. of getting
Mine
the
are.
work. So you just need to figure out like what you can do to always get that appointment.
Yep.
What if your appointment's second? What if the other person's meeting with someone else before that?
Yeah,
Or
and
you,
long-
I
again,
should
as long, I mean, that's what happened last week, right? There was like 3 kicks in the stomach where I was just like, ugh. And I also realized that when I get busy, I've been getting a little sloppier. So I know there's a question in here about it, but I'm a huge pre-listing packet person. And like none of those people that didn't keep their listing appointment with me got pre-listing packets last week, because I've got 5 listings coming this week and I was just kind of not being as tight as I usually am with my systems. My assistant was off, it was just like a week. And so now I'm just like, okay, take that as a lesson, go back to making sure they want to sit down and meet with me so that they can't not at least have the opportunity to talk to me. So going back to those systems is kind of my focus right now.
Would you ever call the real estate agent that your potential client was going to work with and tell them that, like call them personally and have a hard conversation and say that your client went with you instead of them?
I have offered to do that when it's a close friend of someone, when they say, oh my gosh, we really want to hire you, but how are we going to have this conversation? I said, well, I'm a professional, they're a professional, I'm happy to have that conversation for you. No one's ever actually taken me up on it, but I think they have taken you up on it.
I've had a
right?
couple.
Yeah.
Yep, I've had a couple that took me up on it. And you have to make the call if you say you're gonna make the call. So I made the call right out, leaving the listing with the signed listing agreement and let them know that we'd be taking it, but we would afford them the opportunity to see it first if they had any buyers.
I just thought of something else too, as I'm looking at Shane, because Shane is a master, Shane Joseph, you guys don't know him, he's a master at one thing. He's a master at many things, but he's very, very good on the phone when he's putting golf balls around the office. He's very good on the phone, talking to people and making sure that they understand what the pain point is at the end. So one of the things about hiring a friend or a family, which there's an awful lot of realtors in the state, and most everybody knows a friend or family who's a realtor, is you say, it's okay to hire the coach. And if everything goes perfectly smoothly and they do an extraordinary job and it goes very well, that's great. What happens if it doesn't? This gentleman is going to be your son's coach all the way through the next however many years. They're a close friend of yours. They go to the barbecue, so on and so forth, or your family. That's something too. If it doesn't go right, what does that look like for you? And just make sure that they understand that. I think that's a responsibility. Is that something you would probably say?
Are you hiring them because they're your son's coach or they're gonna do a good job for you?
It's great too. It's awesome. All right, in the current market, what is the average days on market for your listings? Has this changed within the last few months? And do you see a change currently? So, or is there going to be one? This is easy answer because it's kind of absolute. So the last 20 listings that we've had have sold in 2 days. The 2 days are the 2 days that they're actually on the market, not coming soon. So they're coming soon for 5 days and they sell in 2 days. They're coming soon from Monday to Friday. We have showings on Friday and Saturday and we sell them on Saturday. On occasion, we'll sell on Sunday. So it's a 2 day listing time period, and those vary in price from 180,000 to about 2.8. So it doesn't matter what price it is, as long as it's done right. And is it going to change? I think that, being in the business for as long as some of these guys have, I think that we're going to see a massive influx in supply, because we're about to hit, first of all, good weather eventually. And the time when all the lake homes, all the acreage properties, all the properties in which people want to show the actual land around the house in a good setting are going to come on the market. And more importantly, over 50% of our buyers have kids in school. Nobody's going to buy a house prior to now and set up a closing, before their kids move out of school June 8th, right? Before they're done with school. So we're going to see a huge influx of listings, plus these interest rates. Don't think they're going to go down in the next month. So I don't think that it's taking buyers entirely out of the market, just the interest rate. But what's taking buyers out of the market is buyers have written on 5 houses, 40,000 over every single time at the top of their price point, haven't gotten any. Now their interest rate goes up. Now they have to go out and buy something less expensive, knowing that they failed to buy something at their high price point. And that's what's driving the buyers out of the market. So I think that we're going to see, and I just saw this last 2 weeks, we're going to see some houses staying on for a second weekend. If you're a listing agent, your house is on that second weekend, do something. Because if it's not gone by that second weekend, you're gonna have some trouble getting them sold. So that's my opinion.
Yeah, I would concur. Our listing timeframe is very similar. We have a very similar plan as to how we go coming soon to active. So we have a similar experience. It's very rare we make it past that weekend without the home being sold. I would also say that what we're seeing right now appears to be the first signs of a shift. Whether that'll take hold or not, it's impossible to know. Right now, I would say that we are telling a lot of our buyer clients on the team that clearly the market is saying 5% is acceptable. The market is accepting 5%. There's going to be consumers that are out. They can't afford it, or just they don't have the stomach for it. But the reality is that houses are still receiving multiple offers at every price range. So the market is responding to 5% as business as usual. The question is at 5.5, 6, 6.5. I read an article in Inman that's at 9% by 2023. Yep. Now, if that happens, I would have to imagine we would see a much different inventory. We'd see a much different landscape. So right now, all is good. It does appear there's some things, and I agree with you. If you have a listing past 2 weekends, it's time to have a conversation with the seller in this environment. That something isn't working.
It used to be a month or
That's right.
60 days. We're going to talk about what to do with the price.
Right, depends.
It's 14 days, man. We're talking
Yep,
face to
for
face.
sure. Absolutely.
I'd also just add that I'd welcome this new market, right? Like this change a little bit, to slow down a little bit and have something where you're not competing with 10 people for a house. Like it's a good balance to have, so it's a step in the right direction. I don't think it's going to go so far as where we're going to see prices, at least with the data we have right now, prices start to decline, but we'll see a stabilization or a very slow moderation in growth. So it's something that shouldn't scare buyers from getting into the market yet. I don't see that happening. It's
Isn't that interesting though? Like what if prices do stabilize, right? Just stay put stagnation for a year, 2 years, yet interest rates climb. The amount of money that each buyer that waited is going to pay extra on the ownership of that same property.
Mhm.
And that's the conversation I'm encouraging our buyer agents to have with our clients right now, because that's what we've seen happen in the last 6 months. We're all speculating about the next. I agree with you as well, though.
Mhm.
Just the buyer demographic, numbers of buyers
versus sellers, it's going to swing pretty
even,
dramatically.
yeah, it's
Having
pretty
that.
remarkable. Think about this, for us that were in the business back in 2008. I think it was 2010 or 2011, there were 18 homes on the market for every single buyer,
Mhm.
right? That probably was the exact opposite at the pinnacle of this. it was probably 18 buyers for every house.
Well, if you remember also in 2005, the average appreciation rate in Edina year over year was 17%
Yeah, that's crazy.
for 2 years in a row. You know, Eden Prairie Chanhassen was 10 and 11%, you know, right before that, you know, so.
But my point is, if you take 18 buyers per house and cut 2/3 of them out, what do you have? 3, 4 buyers per house? That's still a great market.
Yeah,
So,
absolutely.
yeah.
There's another component here too that I've been generally concerned about. And my buyers are asking me, why, you know, why is this, why are we having to go, you know, between 5 and 10% over? And I want to get you guys' perspective on this. Right now, I believe that the buyers are changing the prices of the market. In the past, the realtors would adjust the prices of the market in the spring. For example, a house that was listed at 500,000 last March, and we're going to put that identical house on the market this March. We're having a conversation with our clients and saying, you know what, we've had an appreciation rate of 5%, so we're going to list at a 525 or 529. We're making that adjustment. Now it's been a little bit different, especially in the beginning of the year. I think agents listed houses where they comped out last year. And so the buyers are the ones that are pushing it that 5 to 10% over. Now, where we're going to have a problem is if the buyers are pushing it 5 to 10% over, and at the same time, all the new listings that the listing agents are coming on are adjusting for last year. So they're going to be listing at 5 to 10% over, and the buyers are saying, we got to go 5 to 10% over. We can have something shift pretty quickly there in the next month. And so it'll just be interesting to see how that plays out.
Yeah, I would say that my opinion on the matter would be that the buyers are always the ones that are pushing it, whether it's down or up or the same. You were just talking about a listing that you'd experienced that was on the market for a couple of years. Because the expectation of most consumers, most sellers is you're going to sell my house in an hour, you know, so when it stays on for 10 days, that's end of days. But the reality is that if buyers were just bidding 5 to 10% over everything, they would have made an offer on that house. So there will be prices that the buyer pool says no to. And when we were doing business in 9, 10, 11, and 12, as the market continued to drop day after day, we were always chasing those prices and the buyers would say no. So at some point, you know, it really does fall on the consumers. The market is the market. We can manipulate all we want. We can take the fanciest pictures. We can have the best social media posts. But at the end of the day, the market is the market. And there's only a certain amount of money that holds.
Well, and everything is just based on supply and demand. I mean, it's a known fact. And, you know, when you just don't have enough supply, people are going to bid whatever they need to get that house because they've lost out on 5 other houses or whatever. And so we've been really, you know, looking at, as we're pricing homes, we're looking at, okay, what just sold or what's pending, right? And a lot of times I'll make calls to those agents and that have pending listings that went into multiples, because a lot of times, you know, we put them the comments in the agent remarks. And so I'll call them and just say, hey, you know, I know you can't tell me the exact, but can you give me kind of a range or a percentage that you went over and above? And so we'll look at that. And I mean, I've been basically seeing 10 to 15% over. That is what I've been seeing. So I don't know. The buyers dictate the market. I'm with you.
But I'd also say if you got a horseshit agent, you're not going to get as good a bottom line as you will for the excellent agent, right?
I agree. I agree.
Because I think the market is the market, but at that point, if we're talking about listings, I think there's a lot of things that we can do and sell ourselves that we're going to do a better job.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. You know, in that realm too, I think all of us should get around this idea that individually come up with your own script on how to talk to consumers about this. Is that reality is, like it or not, anybody can sell a house right now. I mean, really, at least in the last year, anybody can sell a house. In fact, the seller can sell their own house. They could put a piece of cardboard in their yard with handwritten note that it's for sale and that house will sell. I will sell it for substantially more than they will. And I tell them that to their face. And I tell them that I will sell it for more than the vast majority of realtors that are licensed right now.
And
there's
it'll
the
close.
differential.
And
That's
it'll
right.
close.
That's right. And every single pitfall along the way that could potentially come up between the day that the offer is accepted and closing, where that could cost you money, or that could be a renegotiation. I'm there holding your hand, getting you over the pitfall. So
And you won't get sued.
well, I can't guarantee that.
That's likely.
I might get sued. They might get sued. You know, I remember somebody told me once, if you never get sued in this business, you're not doing enough business. So eventually, you're gonna get sued.
I just ran into an issue where a client decided that they were either going to list it on their own or go with somebody at a discount. And to your point, Graham, when you're talking about that, one thing I brought up to them is I said, well, so I said, great, let's talk about that. So let me ask you this question. If you got 23 offers on your house, how are you going to decipher which one is going to be advantageous and the best for you? And how are you going to protect yourself? And they just kind of looked at me and I'm like, I'm actually serious. I had 23 offers on a listing 2 weeks ago. What would you do? You know, and that's the thing that I don't think sellers think about if they think they can sell their home on their own, or even going with a part-time agent. I mean, it's hard out there right now. Like when you're a buyer's agent and you're putting together an offer, I mean, you are really working with your buyers. You're trying to be as strategic as possible and come up with something that is going to separate your offer from somebody. And, you know, and then when you're on the flip side and you're the listing agent, you're putting, I got my spreadsheet and we're going through everything. And it comes down to like 4 different offers where they could go either way, but and some people have an appetite to be a little bit more risky versus some sellers don't want to take that risk. So how do you help them get through that? And that's, I think, the biggest.
Well, I think
people.
having a one sheet or a couple bullet points, don't overcomplicate this, where you can explain to people either your own numbers or the numbers of your office to show what is your average list price to sale price ratio. If you don't know that, you should learn it. What is the average list price to sale price ratio of your office relative to the MLS in any determined time that you're trying to show them? And show that differential. Here's what I can do to outperform my competition. You're talking to somebody else from, ABC Realty. I don't know that person, but let's assume they're at least average. The average number here is X. My average number is Y. Here's the differential, and I'm only charging a half a point difference. I'm not leading with that, but it ends up being in that conversation. So the idea is you're offsetting that. When it comes to for sale by owners, find out what the average for sale by owner differential is. Typically, it's monumental. You're talking double-digit differences. So we may be charging 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 10% more than what they could have, paid for doing it themselves. What are we achieving for them? Because at the end of the day, it's about the net. So if you get comfortable around that conversation, you're going to be able to handle this objection, and that's key. That's part of what we have to be doing.
Well, and there is no for sale by owner that's not paying a buyer's agent.
Exactly.
I mean, there, you got 2.7 already in there, even
If
at
not
for
more.
sale. Plus you gotta, they're gonna have to hire somebody to do some of it. So you're always thinking at least 3%. So
Yep.
you're only negotiating that additional 3%. Are
That's
you worth 3%?
Or 4 or
You know.
2. There's no set percent.
Oh, yeah, that's true.
Whatever you want to charge.
Nobody gets sued.
Yeah, I just had this exact same thing come up.
You mean not the industry standard of 6?
What are you talking about? Never heard of such a thing.
But I talk about, no, it's okay. I talk about exposure, pricing / positioning, and then legality, liability, right? And so same, I just used an example of on my own home. I just sold my own home. I let one person come in off market because I said, yeah, you can sell it off market on your own. For sure. You can put that cardboard in the yard and you will have a buyer come in. Well, I let one off market person come to my home and they gave me 15,000 over asking. Well, one showing, one offer, what does that tell me about full exposure to the full open market? Probably going to have another offer come in, right? And so went to the open market, got 45,000 over asking, which is where I landed. And I used that exact example of, hey, you can get limited exposure and you're gonna think you're getting a great deal and you're not going to get the deal. Also, it's not just about the number. What other terms that you've never even heard of are going to be part of that purchase agreement? The top offer had appraisal gap coverage. I actually made them do an inspection because I'm an agent. And I said, I don't want the liability, but everybody else came in, no inspection. So what other terms do you not even know are available to you in this market because you've never heard of them because you have never sold a home before? So it's not one of those things. I talk about exposure, pricing, positioning, and liabilities and all of those and how that's worth 3% or 4%.
There's something else happening now too, is that we don't know how many houses, how many transactions are canceling. Because when a transaction cancels, it goes to buyer number 2. So it would be really good to know how many buyer number 1s are dropping out of these transactions, because I know a dozen of them, not mine, but I know a dozen of them with other realtors alone that have been in situations where, we got appraisal gap coverage, right? Oh yeah, it's great. $50,000 gap. We'll do appraisal gap coverage. Appraisal comes back 40,000 low. Now they literally have to come up with that 40 grand, borrow 401, MHFA, whatever they're going to do, cash if they're lucky. Well, it's the difference between coming up with that 40 grand or losing their $5,000 or $8,000 earnest money. And oftentimes people are gonna drop that $5,000 or $8,000 earnest money and they're gone. You know, so, and all of a sudden we're into buyer two. Well, then that house ends up selling for whoever buyer two was, which was not the optimal buyer. It was the second most optimal. Or that buyer says, oh, we've already bought something else. Or why did that first one fail? Oh yeah, because the appraisal came in 50 grand low. We're out. Now you're on to buyer number 3. But it doesn't go back on the market because there were 12 buyers, you know, but it's not that pretty out there right now. So that was pretty close. Go ahead.
So just like you guys were saying, you know, there's 18 buyers per house, right? Well, there's probably 18 agents that could take the same listing, right? So you've got to do something that sets you apart. And when you're new and starting out, you don't have the same experience to put on the table in terms of this is what I could do for you. You know, you're still trying to win the listing without all that experience, right? Would you recommend to a newer agent to try to win the listing just as a buyer is trying to set different things that set their offer apart? Should newer agents be offering to take a listing at a lower commission to get the listing?
No,
Because you're automatically saying that you're worth less.
Are you brand new in the business?
I'm about a year and a half in.
Well, first of all, she was rookie of the year. I think you're selling yourself short, Maureen.
I've never done it. I've never lowered my commission, but it always comes up. And I always wonder if more experienced agents do
I
it.
see Amanda in the back there. I remember doing this exact scenario with you when you first started in the business that I'm going to share with you right now. And maybe you've heard this from somebody else. I'm sorry, what's your name?
Maureen.
Maureen?
Maureen.
Maureen. Somebody else shared this with me when I was new and it actually helped me secure listings. I was up against an agent that did a ton of business in this neighborhood, arguably the leader in the neighborhood. And I kind of knew the individuals, how I got into the house. And they said, look, we like you. We think you would do a good job, but how do we not go with this person? Their signs are everywhere. And I said to them, look, they're awesome. And they're doing a great job. And if you hire them, you'll be one of 50 clients. If you hire me today, you'll be one of one. I will give you 100% of my dedication. And also, I'll tell you this, I'll make you the promise, I'll put it in writing. If you're unhappy with me at the end of the 30 days, just tell me and I'll pull my sign out of the yard and I'll even do better. I'll call him, tell him to come over. And list
How
the
can you
house.
do that if you're a big number one agent, you're doing 20 million a year? How can you give them your number one?
What?
How can you do that?
We
Well,
don't
that's
have to
not-
because of the experience. We're
No,
talking about what
I'm-
she does.
We're new.
I'm saying as a brand new agent.
Got it.
You're a brand new agent.
Yeah. That's like,
Oh, you're not doing a very good job.
Pat's just ready to pounce on that one. Tell me how you do that.
This is the one time you can teach that objection handler. That literally, and it's be humble about it. You're my client. I'm gonna give you everything. I'm gonna drag the whole office over here with me and make them give you everything too. And if you're unhappy with me, I will call that other agent after 30 days and they can put their sign in the yard. And on that listing, day 30 came. I didn't have it sold. And I asked them if they wanted me to pull the listing. They said, no, you're doing a
You're
great
doing a
job.
great job.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's huge. Anyone who was in the negotiation class. Do you remember what every single person wears as a sign around their neck? Every human being, it's the same sign. It is the most important thing for human beings. You remember? Come on, Chris.
Make me
Okay.
feel important.
Make me feel special or important. And you doing that is absolutely critical because that, and he's exactly right. I mean, the first 10 years, that's pretty much all I did.
Yeah.
So, was yeah, I know all these people, they've got this many clients and you don't say their name or anything, but they've got this many clients, they attend to them. Or the reason why I went to you on that previous question is that, you know what, you're gonna talk to this head agent over here. That's just seeing all the things, but you're never gonna work with them. Potentially, that's right. You know, they've got eight other people selling houses.
I will say this, if you and I are ever in competition with one another on a listing, I'm gonna tell them I told you to say.
Exactly.
I think too, I think there's a huge opportunity for newer agents to dig into the data. And I mean, you could hear, I think everybody up here is probably extremely data driven. You have time to go out and preview every single home that you can get into that's in their neighborhood. You have time to do things that we aren't going to do because we don't have the time. So I think, I mean, I talk to my client or my agents or my team about, you know, if you're doing an open house, for instance, but same thing on the listing side. Like, I want you out in every single home in that neighborhood, so you can talk to the one person that comes in that doesn't have an agent. And you can say, well, that one, I know why it's not selling, the basement smells, or you got experiential evidence that you are a master of that market, right? And you can do the same thing on the listing side. You can prepare in a way and dig into data and have numbers that you can draw on and have a bajillion experiential comments that you can go back to. That's going to set you up in a way that, again, it's going to be a strength for you that we're not going to have
I
necessarily.
think that's genius. That is, if you cannot sell yourself, sell your expertise, which you just did by doing what she suggested. 2 weeks of, doing the research, 1 week, 3 days, whatever it is, buckle down, be the expert and go in there. Because I'm gonna tell you right now, that's not gonna be me. It might be my assistant
That's why I
Jordan.
beat Graham on every list.
Exactly. Way too busy.
The other thing too is
I just
like,
give up on the
if
dead weight
you,
one.
if there's some agents in your office that are out doing a lot of listing appointments, I would shadow them and go on the appointments with them and take notes and as many different agents as you can and start putting together who is Maureen, what do I represent, and become who you want to be. And it's the greatest thing that you can do for yourself is learning through those experiences. And also just, give yourself some grace and don't be too hard on yourself because job is hard enough. So.
You can take on a co-list, I mean, too, right? Like if you're lacking a little confidence, or like Rick said, you take on that partner for that listing to have that balance, have that expertise, to have that, give you the kind of that confidence boost. Would you rather give a little split on 3.3%? Or would you rather take 0% of not getting listing? If that's a risk you're worried about, or the confidence, take
And I
on a
think
partner for that
Yeah,
list.
and like you said, I would
Yeah.
try to see as many people's different styles as you possibly can, and then you're gonna start to feel what is authentically gonna be a match for you. If I go in and I try to be super like soft and lovey-dovey, it's not super authentically me. I am a data business person, and I can mirror and match that for the right client. Like, I've got this little contingency of 90-year-old men that I work with that I'm super lovey-dovey and soft with, and business with. Like, I overlay it. If I just tried to be there, I wouldn't be successful. Whereas other people, if they just try to live in data, they're not going to be successful because it's just not authentically their thing.
And-
So getting exposure to as many different styles. I think
And this is not easy. Do not rule out the idea of partnership. I ran my own real estate company by myself for 10 years before coming here. And then I was here for 2 years before I got a partner. And it was challenging for me to learn this, but not everybody likes me. Actually, like 50% of the people like me. And so I chose a partner. It's true. He can attest to that. So, and what happened is I chose a partner that is literally the complete opposite of me. She's actually nice, and she's sweet, and she's compassionate, and she cares about people. And so there's some people that will be like, I just want it done. Just type A, get it done. This is business. Get her done. $2 million listing. I'm a doctor. I don't have time for anything else. I don't want Sherry to be nice to me. Just Rick, just get the deal done. But the other half of the people are looking for the other. So don't ever not consider that, because it's been the best decision that I've ever made in business, and we're more successful together than we could have even imagined being alone. So that's very helpful.
Yeah, it's interesting. I would say like a lot of what we're talking about here, it doesn't matter the topic. All of these have to do, you said it best when you answered your question. You try to get out ahead of that. That really applies to everything we're talking about. Having your objection handlers in place. If you have a one-sheeter or a pre-listing packet, putting something like that together, asking other folks in your office for examples of what they do, if they'll share it with you to see. We send those out on our team as well. They're going to handle a lot of these objections already in there. It's not a novel, but there's some really good data points.
Mine
in there.
literally has a novel. It's a hardcover book that is a novel, and I'm like, read it, please, and then I don't have to talk to you about anything.
But it is true, when you put together, and again, there's so many things that you can be building, especially when you're new, and it never ends, even when you're in the business, while you're readjusting and tweaking things. So it does seem overwhelming at times. Start with one page, just why should they hire you? What is it about you, a one-page resume that you send to them, right? But I can tell you, and I'm sure you've experienced this as well, that There's many times you send that over to the folks, you show up, did you have an opportunity to read it? Yes, I have. Did you have any questions? No, we're ready to sign. It happens once in a while. Not always, but it happens once in a while. Like, oh, I don't have to do anything in my presentation.
Or like I've come and
Here we
they've
go.
flagged 3 pages and they're like,
Right.
we have questions about these 3
Yeah,
things. And then I
highlighted.
answer them and they're like, okay,
Anything else?
let's go.
Yep, that's right.
I'm like, oh, well, that was what you hear.
And then I would say, I don't know about the rest of you, but I do still script practice every week. I lead the script practice for my team, and I know that a lot of other people have script practicing groups. That's what you're doing, you're handling objection handlers. You're just getting used to it. You're getting comfortable with the conversation, because at the end of the day, it seems overwhelming, the amount of things they could object. There's like 3 or 4. There's really not many. It's the same 3 or 4 all the time. So you come up with your objection handlers, and those might evolve over time as, you know, as the market evolves. But yeah, that's all you do. To your point about people not liking you, not everybody's gonna like
Like a
us.
reminder.
Yeah. I didn't think it bothered you, actually.
Be a slogan, right? Rick, not everybody likes
You don't like me, you like my
partner.
To talk to people you trust about how are you presenting yourself with other folks. Like, I never realized two things. One, I never realized that when I'm contemplating something, if somebody's sharing with me, I typically have a very mean looking face. Like, I didn't know that. And I'm not angry, but I'm really like listening and thinking, and people are like, Jesus Christ, like back up a little bit. And then we did a script practice once in the office with you and I did. And you said something to me that day. This is like 4 or 5 years ago. And I had no idea. Where we were doing a script practice, we were doing a role play, and you were like, whoa, bro, back up. Like I was, and the TL was like, oh, do you do that on purpose? I'm like, do what? Do you position yourself on top of people to talk to them? And I thought, I don't do that at all. And then I watched the tape and I was like, oh my God, that was like predatory. And I think I do that. I think I tower over people when I'm trying to win a negotiation, and I didn't know that. You know, so sometimes it's good to check yourself and ask friends, like, do I look scary? Do I look weird when I'm doing these things? Because it translates across the table.
Yeah, Sherry used to kick me under the table. When I would act like you. Every time there was just a point during that. And then we decided that wasn't super appropriate, because once in a while they could tell that I was like, oh, you know, and then I would slow down. So now, however she's sitting, if she puts her hand on the table like this, that's when I realized, oh my goodness, Rick, just chill out just a little bit. So,
Yep.
you know, just identify those things.
We get
Adjust.
excited, there's commissions.
I think that's all hearing and matching, right? Like it's knowing
Yeah.
who to be hard with, who to be soft with. Like a lot of it is just starting to be able to read people and know when to push and when to pull, and when they're ready and when they're not. You know, a lot of, when we were again getting these questions, a lot of them I was like, well, my answer would be, right? Like I just had somebody ask me about negotiating commission, and they had said 3 times already in the appointment, I want a super aggressive agent. Okay, well, I'm going to answer that differently than somebody who really needs to ask me about commission, right? He's like, my friend told me I had to ask that, and they're like, get back right from the table, but I'm scared too, right? Those are going to be 2 different conversations. I think so much of this is just learning how to mirror match, deal with their energy.
What do you got in the bucket?
Let's find out.
And we really went on the tangent there.
Tell us about a time when you told a seller that you could not do their listing. Or has this never happened? I'm trying to remember a time that I told them I can't work with them. I fired a couple in the middle of the transaction. I've taken many listings I've regretted. Many. It just turned out to be such hard work. And just, you know, more importantly, not hard work, but it was hard to emotionally manage the transaction. They were emotional people, and it was really, really difficult to manage that. And I'm trying to think though, if I've told a couple of hoarding houses I couldn't take the listing, not because I was judging them. It was just an unsellable home. That's a wholesale profit. That's a whole different story. And that was back in the downturn as well. I mean, now I guess you could sell anything, including a hoarding, but and I'm talking about homes that were just overwhelming with, you know, busting at the seams with stuff that needed to be cleaned out. Nothing could get financed. So when homes have been past a certain disrepair, I haven't taken the listing and told them it'd be their opportunity to talk to maybe a wholesaler. Now we have things like, you know, some of the online offers companies that will offer. Maybe it's good to talk to them. That's not something I'd be interested in. And quite honestly, it's a tough sell, you know, I mean, how do you market that? You know, that's-
You know, when you were talking about where you have fired clients, and because they're more emotional or they're just crazy people. Like for me, the ones that I have fired, they were the ones that I took a reduced commission on.
Yeah, almost always. I'm gonna be your easiest client. You
Yeah.
just charge me this
Yeah.
half rate and then it's boom, often raises every 5 minutes, a phone call, text. Now, why aren't you calling back?
Yeah.
We already set yourself up for failure and you gave them the permission to say you're not worth it.
Yep.
Right.
And that's how they're gonna treat you. I fired a couple of too, and the biggest thing for me is I fired a couple of high profile clients too in particular. And one in particular, I just had to ask myself, how many, after being in the business this long, how many other clients can I do an extraordinarily great job for when I'm not dealing with this prick?
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
I said that, I shouldn't have said it out loud, but that's how it started. And the time and energy that goes into those is just so much. And it's not about, oh, poor me, all the time and energy, it's poor my other clients that I'm not taking care of because I'm dealing with this. So look at it that way once and put yourself in a position where you're gonna be that 10 out of 10 agent for the next person. You know, and you'll do a better job than him because he's got way too many clients. So.
Here we go. We did so many updates. I know our house is worth more. Let me interview other agents. I bet they can sell it for the price we want. Your reply. I remember reading this one on your list. You know, I welcome them to interview other agents. I typically know who they're going to meet with beforehand because I do an intake form when I'm talking to them on the phone. And I always, one of the spots in this form is, are you interviewing other agents? And if so, may I ask who they are? Because I want to know who my competition is. I always ask. Most people don't remember, which is kind of sad, but I usually ask because, you know, I've been in the business 18 years and you start to know people and you can easily do research on people. So I usually do a lot of research on these agents. I pull up how much business they're doing. If I know somebody that might know that agent or in that office, I call. So I want to know who my competition is, and I'm very open and honest with the listing agent or the seller about it. And so when they talk about the updates that they have made, and they think their home is worth more, you know, I guess what I typically do is I will, and they want to interview other agents. I will basically look at, I'll have them list what they feel is really important to sell their home and how we highlight those things. And right now in this market, I would say, you know, yes, let's price it right. Let's look at, or let's highlight all of those ideas. And then let's let the buyers determine what your home is worth right now. And I will hopefully in my presentation provide them with the information how I'm going to market their home. I do a lot of home highlights throughout the home where I point out different great features and benefits of the house so that will help them elevate and get more for their dollar. Or for their price. And I don't know, that's kind of the, it's your life.
Clearly are too busy.
It's the life. I don't know if that, I don't know. I might not have the best answer for that. I don't know that I really process it that much, but I don't know. Does anybody else want to chime in?
You know, I think also this is a really good opportunity to just use some traditional negotiation style conversation, you know, repeat and approve. Isolate the objection. Find out if price is really the objection here or if there's something else.
Right.
Because often there's something else. Usually when people like us, they're going to tell us, I really want to work with you, but can't we do better on the price?
Mhm.
When they talk about that, there might be something else standing out there. You know, if we were in complete agreement on the price aside, is there anything else here that, you know, I haven't shared with you or you didn't like what you saw that you wouldn't hire me right now? And usually like, well, here it is, you know, there's this. And, or it comes down to the price. And then it's up to everybody on what they want to do. And there's no right answer here. Me personally, we try to take every single listing we can in this market, and we have for the last couple of years. In 12, 13, 11, 10, we would pick and choose a few because you will go broke on some of these listings. And sometimes it was better to be the second or third agent involved, you know, in the listing. Let them, you know, go to the market with that other person and cancel because that was the number one reason. If we're down to the wire with somebody that says, I really believe that the price is here. I love you guys. I want to work with you. We will have that conversation and say, let's give it a try. Why not? There's no harm in listing the house too high. There's just a harm in living there forever. You know, let's do that and give it 10 days. And after 10 days, if we don't have an offer, we have to talk about adjusting the price. Are you committed to that? You know, and have that kind of a conversation up front to see what they're willing to do versus, oh, absolutely, we'll get you that price. And then when you don't get that price, they are going to blame you. It will be your fault. No matter what happened. They might have canceled half of the showings that were even set up. They might have left the garbage laying all over the floor, dishes and things. It will be your fault that the home didn't sell in their eyes. And they will tell all of their friends and their neighbors and the next realtor how terrible you were. But they were pretty nice, but they didn't know what they were doing. If you don't want it, they'll always blame you for it. So have that conversation up front.
And when they do blame you, we actually write into our listing agreement at that time, we say in the event that the house is not under contract in 14 days, we agree to have a meeting face to face. And why not? Because then you just ask them. And then when they do, and then it will be, hey, you didn't do this, you didn't do that. And I say, I want to remind you that this listing, when we signed it, I said, I cannot sell this house, your house. And you know better than anyone else because you lived here 15 years. I cannot sell it without you. This is in fact a
I'm not even
partnership.
kidding. I just drank a coffee bean.
Oh, that's good. Extra caffeine.
Yeah. I don't tell people the price of their homes. So the way I price homes, it's a conversation and we're going to come up with a range that makes sense. And then right at the time of listing, we're going to actually pick a price. And I tell them, I'll pick something that's absurdly high. I'll say, you can list it for $1 million if you want to. If you choose that price, we are going to have a very, very specific positioning plan for when it doesn't sell. So I'll use a number that's way out of their range. And then if they choose to push outside of the range that we talked about, again, in this market, I'll take anything. But we are going to have an in plan or a plan in writing that they sign at the time of listing. So we will be making an adjustment and it will be a positioning adjustment, which is usually at least $25,000 at this amount of days on market. And we put that right in the purchase.
How many times earlier in your careers, even now, that you go on a listing appointment and lose out, right? And you watch the listing because you're jaded, mad that you didn't get it. You got nothing else to do because you're newer in the business. And you're just looking at it and it's reducing and it's reducing and it's reducing. And then it sells exactly where you said it would sell. And you're like, I was right. And that other agent.
And I didn't make any money.
Yeah.
Just to finalize the partnership deal because of the rude disruption. Just to wrap it up to the actual point. So this in fact is a partnership. I'm kidding, of course. This in fact is a partnership which we discussed in the beginning. You now have made it very clear some of the things that you think that I have done incorrectly or that need improvement. I told you in the beginning that I will continue to change and adapt to make sure this house gets sold. So I will make those changes because it's a partnership. Let's talk about what you can do. Now we come to, again, an agreement together with a new price and a new plan. You can leave there being comfortable that you're going to have to go back to the office and make some changes, and the sellers are going to make their changes that you've recommended. So
that's a great point.
Yeah.
No, that's great. That's great.
All right, here we go. Okay. You're good friends with your neighbor and you know that they have thought about selling their home. You also know that their cousin works for Redfin. You know that they do not particularly care
Went
for
for
the
it on that
personality of their cousin. But they have mentioned that Redfin, you get saved $10,000 since they only charge 1.5% commission. You want the listing, how do you get it?
ABC Realty.
ABC Realty. Oh, I Gosh,
Recorded.
so I'm neighbors, their cousin's a realtor, and we're some red fans. What charge you want?
And he keeps going.
I was gonna say, what else? Our blue fans. Let me see, how would I approach that? I probably, first off, the one thing to be proactive about it is I'd be networking, like, okay, I know their house, I know the details. Where do I know somebody, or maybe my own buyer pool, but somebody that's got a buyer need that fits that property? So I know they're thinking about selling, I just approach them and just say, hey, look, I know you guys have been talking about selling. I've actually got some buyers already lined up that could make this really good and get you a lot of money for the house. Well, my cousin's a realtor, he works for Bluefin, he's charging 1.5%. Oh, Jesus, all right, well, Bluefin, okay. Well, it's 1.5% plus there's another 2.7 that you have to pay on top of that, right? Oh, I didn't, you want to role play with me real quick?
Sure.
So, yeah, it's 1.5% plus the other 2.7% that you should pay the buyer's agents. You're really not saving that much when you're looking at it.
Wow, I guess I didn't know about the 2.7.
Yeah, it's 2.7 plus the 1.5. And, honestly, I'm just really confident that I'm going to be able to get you a lot more money for the house. And I'm doing this all the time. And, Redfin or Bluefin, it's great for, they're more of a high volume business. You're not going to get the personal care. And really in this market, it's more important than ever to have an agent really fighting for you to get money. It's not just a system we're going to plug you into. So you're saving a lot.
Well, he's my cousin, so, it's gonna be really hard to move away from him.
Yeah. And tell me more about, what do you mean by that?
Well, I just to tell him that we're gonna list with somebody else, that would be a big deal. I mean, he would be probably really upset with me.
And yeah, I can see how that could make you feel, but let me ask you this. Let's say you go into the deal with your cousin and your cousin, and then the deal goes south or something bad happens. So you got one short-term thing and your biggest asset, right? You guys are talking about your biggest asset.
Yeah.
But what happens if something goes south? And you got all these gatherings and all of a sudden you got this.
He doesn't really ever come.
Okay, so he's not really a close cousin then.
Well, I close with him, but family doesn't really like him. They think he's a know-it-all.
Yeah. So is it more about saving commission then, or is it more about working with your cousin?
Well, I think it's a little bit of both because I can make more money because I'm not going to be paying as big of a commission. And I mean, this market, anything sells, right?
You are absolutely right. Yeah, like we were saying earlier, you can put a sign out front, you can sell it yourself. Actually, you can cut it out completely, right? And you want to save some money, you could save a lot of money by doing that. So, but the thing is that although it's a very hot market, it's never been a more important time to have a really good agent working for you on your behalf on this, because there's so many incremental different things you can change with the listing, the way you negotiate, the way you handle things coming in. It might seem simple, but there's so much leverage that you can do in this market, in this hot market, to really benefit your bottom line. And that's what I'm really good at doing. And that's, this paperwork that I show you, it's got all this data. I can show you exactly what I can do to get it sold. And in fact, I actually go back to Brama's suggestion here too. In my listing presentations is like this, and this is the real thing. Everyone, look, I know you're thinking about it. Just give me a month. And in fact, if we get into a listing contract and you're not happy with what I'm doing, you can cancel it anytime without penalty, nothing. Just give me an opportunity to show you what I can do for you. I think you're gonna be really impressed with the opportunities. Like I said, I've already got 5 buyers like that, ready to go.
Okay, where do I?
I would also add to that, especially to the specific question about the neighborhood, right? So you had said in that role play, my cousin would be very upset if, I hired just somebody else. I would be very confident in that if it's your neighborhood. Well, I would be upset with you too if you hired somebody else. By hiring me, you're not hiring somebody else. You're hiring the neighborhood specialist. And you want the neighborhood specialist or somebody else or a cousin. I would go down that road. I would feel comfortable in that space. Get to know your numbers too. Very easy to look up or get from your team lead. What are some of our competitors, average list price and sale price numbers? Yeah, talk about that. I think we're talking about a 1.5 point difference here is really what we're talking about. And on average, I'm achieving 4 points above what that company is achieving. by hiring me, you're putting more money in your pocket at the end of the day. And it sounds like that's what's most important, to you, isn't it? Go back to those kind of conversations.
We have a couple questions. I don't know who. had
You
it
guys first, so go ahead. I was just gonna ask, would you open up the idea of having the cousin or however old they are to work underneath you and watch how you do the deal so they can learn something also, but he's not feeling excluded?
Yeah, so I just want to chime in because I sold my neighbor's house and his sister is a realtor for a red, white and blue company. And great guy, but we did everything that you're saying. The first thing, she was going to give him a discount. She was going to do it for 4.5%. So it's very simple. It's a 750 house, right? 4.5%. It's a 1.5% difference. It's a $10,000 difference between the two. I can absolutely guarantee you, if you market it correctly and we do this right, I'm going to get you way more than that $10,000 difference. Furthermore, I paid her a referral fee, 10%. I do that all day long. It's his sister. I mean, simply out of respect. I got the listing. She got something. She did nothing other than being related to him. Now she lived in like Roseville or something, so she was out, not, it wasn't her area. And he did not want to go through that with his family, but it was a win-win. So I do something like that, maybe not bring them into the fold, especially if they're working for Bluefin, but.
But to speak to Graham's point too earlier about the knowing the neighborhood expert, like if there's one thing, if you're newer agents, like you should be previewing every day. You should know your neighborhood inside and out. If you have a listing presentation, go there the day before or the day of, preview every active listing in that neighborhood. So when they come up with the comparables, you don't even have to say you're the expert. Like, I've been in this house, actually, it doesn't look as good as it does in the photos, and here's why it's not selling. You don't even have to say it. They're like, oh, shit, she's really.
Yeah, and get to know every listing and whatever you define your neighborhood as, every single one, because your neighbors know it. Every one of your neighbors, once they figure out that you're a realtor, they're gonna come to you at every single moment. Block, right? Did you see that one? Did you see this one? Did you see that? And they're gonna know everything about these houses. They're
Yeah.
gonna expect you to too.
And then I would encourage you to have every buyer who writes on your neighbor's house to put a personal letter in so you can hand pick the buyer yourself.
Fair housing violations. Just everywhere.
Make sure you're paying attention. Jamie would be all over this. I know, she would be like.
I would just say in reference to Ed Finray is number one, they have a la carte pricing on top of their listing fees. So if you want marketing materials on your table at an open house, you're paying for the copies. The seller is paying the copies. If you want, you have to pay to put the sign in the yard. So there's not just a 1.5% listing fee, but on top of that, they're going to nickel and dime you where you list with me, flat fee. The other thing is their pay structure. Your cousin's going to get paid every 2 weeks, whether your home sells or not. I don't sell your home. I don't need Kim. That's where I'm going to go the extra distance. Somebody like your cousin. Finay.
I was gonna ask, I had a similar situation happen in my neighborhood, but it wasn't a relative, it was, and I'd even sold a house right down the street from it. But it was a school teacher in our neighborhood and her husband was relocating. And I didn't even get a chance to have a listing appointment and get in the door. They had already signed. But she said that her husband's relocation company, they had to use a certain brokerage and that, and she was apologetic. And then she had her agent reach out to me and say, you can be the first to bring a buyer in and all of that. But I felt like, gosh, I didn't even have a chance to get in the door. Is that true when someone's relocating?
Relocation companies. So Keller has a relocation company out of Maple Grove, and I am relocation certified, so you have to be certified. And typically what happens is they contact our relocation department, and then depending on the area, they will reach out to the agent. They're an agent from Keller Williams, and then the relocation company might also have someone from Coldwell Banker or from Medina Realty, whatever. So then there's two of us, and we're in competition for that. And if we're within a certain dollar amount, we're good. They'll pick one. If we're not within like 5% of each other, they might bring in a third agent. But yes, they do have agents that are relocation certified.
However,
Yeah.
No,
But
But if your friend's got to use relocation or whatever, if you can get ahead of it and say, no problem, I can do relocation. It's not something I choose to focus on because you got to work with this. It's a lot of red tape. But I'll do it for you. You just got to tell them that you want me to be one of the agents at the relocation.
Yeah.
And then if they take that initiative and do that, then you can get in on that. And the other thing I'd like to, it's just one thing, you know, we've got a lot of great ideas and tidbits and things here that everybody can get. But one thing that's consistent, I would argue, I don't even know everybody here, but it's persistence. So like you mentioned that you were nervous about the listing presentation, you lost out on a deal. I lost out on 2 last week. I know you did, you mentioned something about it and you were talking about the listing. So we're all like, if you go to a listing presentation and you lose, and especially when you're early on, it can feel really defeating. Just keep going, because it gets easier to go. It gets easier to hit the ball, and you're still going to have that as part of your business 10 years from now. So it just hurts more in the beginning. So keep fighting through all that
And
stuff.
here's what I would add to that too. Something that I do, because I'm always looking for feedback, I'm always looking to grow and be a better agent, is when they tell me, or sometimes they just don't call you and you're calling them and finally you get them on the phone and they're like, oh yeah, well, we signed with blah, blah, blah. Ask them, I'm always looking to grow. Do you have any feedback for me? What could I have done differently? And I was super defeated because I was in a relocation competition, and I thought I knocked it out of the park. I was so excited. I really, come skipping out of the front door, and they ended up going with the other realtor. And I did know this part, but she had helped them purchase it when they moved here. And then they were leaving, and they chose her because of that. So they said, it was really a tough decision because you said you'd both do the same things and blah, 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 which I know there were things that I don't think that agent would have done. But that's just me. And I decided, you know what, I can sit here and beat myself up that I didn't get this, but just knowing that they picked her because they had that relationship with her, I couldn't compete with that part. So
They respect you when they hear that, because they go, wow, here's somebody really digging for the listing. And I didn't give it to them, and this is the reason why I didn't. And the fact that you came and asked, it's huge. If they get a chance to give somebody a listing, you're going to get the next one because they knew they were committed, right? It's human nature.
All right. Seller says, can you explain your commission to me? I don't understand why I should be paying someone else's agent to sell my house when I'm employing you. Paying the buyer's agent doesn't make sense to me. I only want to pay you, not them. How do you reply to this? I actually think this is a relatively easy one. It did take me a second to think about it, but the seller is paying you. The seller is not paying anyone else. And I would say to them, when we fill out the contract at the end of this meeting, you're going to see, and I'm going to explain to you how commissions actually work in real estate. So at the beginning of the contract, you're going to see that you're agreeing to pay my brokerage and myself 6%. Later in the contract, it discloses to you what I plan to pay out of what you're paying me to the cooperating broker or the buyer's agent. So it's not that you are paying them, you are paying me. I am choosing to offer out a co-broking commission to the other side, and I choose to pay out 2.7 because it's the Twin Cities standard. I also do some work up on the Iron Range. Up there, the standard is 2.1%. I actually pay out 2.5. And the reason that I stay at standard or above is because I want to attract amazing, great agents and make sure that, all agents are supposed to show your home, even if we don't offer them a commission. And I just want to make sure that I'm offering it to everybody so that we can draw in every single agent, even if they're not the most ethical person, right? We want to make sure we're bringing everybody in and we're getting the exposure for every buyer. So you are agreeing to pay me a commission. You are never agreeing to pay out the buy side. That's my choice. And that is disclosed to you in the listing agreement.
So and if you take a little bit off the buyer, what you're paying the buyer's rep and reduce our commission just a little bit.
I will not. I will not. No, because I don't want to, first of all, my reputation in this business is extremely important to me. I work with a lot of the same agents over and over again. And if I start getting the reputation that I'm paying out less, that starts to tinge the way they think about me. So for my reputation, and you don't need to worry about that because I'm giving them my money. Yeah. So I am worth 6%. Today, that's what I charge. It's negotiable. So if you would like to negotiate what you're paying with me, we can go down that path. know I negotiate for a living. And so would you like to start the negotiations or should I?
I feel obligated to add to that because of what's happening in the market right now. And that is, I've been doing this, this is year 23, and out of 23 years, it has never been this hard for a buyer's agent to, you know, the degree and the amount of work that they have to do is tenfold of what they had to do in 2015. So the last thing I'm going to do is undercut them and say that you're worth less. Because the other thing I'm going to tell you is good realtors attract good buyers. So we want to pay good realtors for their good buyers that are going to pay the most for your house and not back out. So, but do not drop commissions. It's just not a good idea right now.
And that's
on the
what-
buyer side.
And that's what a lot of the, you know, competitors that are discounting their commissions are doing. They're also trying to maybe lower that a little bit. You know, if I'm working with a buyer and I see even 2.5, I'm instantly irritated. I'm like, I'm already busting my butt. And I know this seller's going to be a difficult pain. It's like not going to be, they're the same type of buyer that wants to negotiate on your listings, which are your commissions, which is also a very challenging buyer. Client to speak of. So
And
it's a big turnoff.
don't forget our obligation. If you go on, which I don't, we usually fill out a buyer's contract when we're writing an offer, not a good idea. But don't forget the obligation, the buyer's agreement, that there's a commission in there that the buyer is responsible for paying if you don't get it. If you put 2.7 in there, you're getting paid 2.1, they have a contractual, your buyer has a contractual obligation to pay the difference. So we forget that often in all of these that are discounted because it's a 5% listing that they're splitting at 2.5 and 2.5. So
I love bringing that up with my buyers.
I love your answer, Annalie, about how you explain that, because that's exactly how it is, and it's historically how it's been. You know, at one point, the average listing commission was higher than 6%
Oh, yeah.
on the average, right? So there is no seller paying the buyer's agent, and it also sets up for success should you bring the buyer to keep the full 6% and not have to do a discount, because you're explaining that the full transaction is worth, you know, a total of 6%. To your point about the buy side, I think this is something that everybody should get very, very comfortable with this conversation on both sides. If you're not familiar with the class action lawsuit that's been going on, this is real deal.
Which is what I was, can I just jump in for 1 second? That's why it's really important that we understand how the commissions are actually happening and that we're explaining that to our clients because of these lawsuits. People have been saying to their clients for way too long, well, you're going to pay 2.7 to them and you're going to pay 3.3 to me. That is not what's happening.
That's right.
We are getting paid and we are choosing to pay out to the buy side at whatever rate we choose. So just be very clear. And now that it in the list, it didn't used to be in the listing contract either. Now that it is, it's so easy to go through that with people and have them.
And think about it, for everybody who doesn't get the listing, but also, you know, stay in business. I mean, for real, if that class action lawsuit is won, it will be the seller's choice whether to pay out a buyer rep, right? If the buyer reps go to 0, how are all of you that are representing buyers going to have that conversation with the buyer that you owe me 2.7%? How many of you will charge 2.5? How many of you will charge 2? How many people in the market will charge 1.5 or 1% to represent a buyer? Okay, think about that. That's a real deal. If you go from everybody's like, oh, it's just 0.2%. No, it's not. That's like a 10% cut. You know, what if your wages were cut 10% right now, 20% right now? Okay, that's real. So that's what's happening right now at the federal level. They're talking about this. And there's some big players. Realogy came out in favor of it. That's a big player, you know, to say, yeah, we shouldn't make it mandatory. We agree it should be there. It's going to be the best outcome for the seller, but the seller shouldn't be mandated to pay something to be on the MLS. That's what this is all about. So everybody that meets with a buyer and says, you know what, you can hire me. It's super easy. I do this for free. You don't even have to pay me. Whoa, what are you doing? What are you doing? We actually, just so you know, full transparency, we collect every single dime between 2.7. That's our standard on our team. 2.7. Yeah. If there's a less than 2.7 payout on the buy side, we collect that from our buyers.
it's good. Should I do this? We have 10 minutes left, or do you want to
should
do
we-
the people? You want to
You
do
guys
the
wanted
most
to do
important
some
people?
open
The
Q&A?
most important? Let's do that.
Yeah,
This is for
I
sale,
agree.
we don't-
Let's focus on questions that people have. And then if anybody has me online, then they can check the chat.
Questions?
How are you guys
The
lead
class-
generating for sellers? How are you obtaining, getting to the table?
Yeah, you have a write-up.
Presentation?
He cheated. Came so prepared.
Well, I think this is kind of a catch-22. So we're establishing your sphere of influence. Don't just reach out to your sphere of influence in a social media way. Invite them to events. The biggest thing for us is every single time we list a house and we sell a house, we always send to our entire sphere a just listed about that house with links. It's gorgeous. And then the just sold is even more important because it was just sold in 3 days and in 2 days and multiple offers, well over list price. We've been sending those for the past year. That exact, script in the advertisements, and it has yielded tremendous, not just, our sphere of influence, coming to us for listings, but them giving us referrals, because they're hearing what's going on in the market and they need somebody who is going to be doing it effectively with great marketing. So have great marketing.
So are you, sorry, question on that.
Mhm.
Before you go to the next. Are you sending those just listed and just sold to your sphere and around that listing?
Okay, so that's next. So the next thing is we send an actual mailer. One second, go ahead.
Send an email or hard copy?
Okay, so two of the sphere of influence is our email, and they're beautiful with links and everything, and my picture, all that kind of stuff, everything about the house. And then the next thing we do is that as soon as that listing is sold, let's just say it's on Winsong and Eden Prairie off of Linner. I'm going to talk off of Linner. Then we're going to go to that particular neighborhood. There's 45 houses, and we're going to send a beautiful flyer to them about their neighbor's house. Just sold your neighbor's house in multiple offers in 2 days for well over list price. Not disclosing anything that we can't because we didn't tell them exactly what it sold for, which we could tell once the seller said go ahead, but nevertheless. We send those out. That's yielding probably one listing per neighborhood because a lot of those people saw the 24 showings that showed up there. They saw the sold sign that we put on 2 days later, so you're taking advantage of listings. If you don't have listings, you just got to be getting out there and meeting people and being very, very bold about it. So, the other way we're getting listings again, and I alluded to this earlier, and this is primarily our luxury listings. I've had enough experience in luxury to sell myself with luxury listings and here over $1 million or so, but I do significantly better bringing Sherry along. So we do way better as a team because they're actually getting 2 realtors for the price of one. Luxury listings at $2.8 million that are 10,000 square feet on acreage in Eden Prairie that we're doing next week. It takes way, way more time and energy to do the prep, to do the marketing. The roof alone is $125,000 project, so these are bigger things, and having somebody else involved is huge. And that's how we're winning over the single agent who sells the most in Eden Prairie, for example. It's not her yet, but it's coming.
Are there other questions that people have?
I would add to that. So our top 5 lead generation sources are our sphere. So our database is number 1 by far. Overwhelming. Number 2 for us, believe it or not, is open houses. A lot of opportunities in open houses. Number 3 is our geographic farm, which is my neighborhood. Number 4 is our ISA. And number 5 is our vendor partners. Inside sales agent, who we only brought on like a year and a half ago. So that's a new source of business for us. And then our vendor partnerships, which is a very close one with our ISA. That's where we demand from our business to business relationship. We demand.
And who's your ISA calling?
They're calling our database as well at times. So they are doing some database servicing calls. They're calling for sale by owners, canceled, expireds. Arguably, the last 2 have been very limited the last year. They're doing some they do circle prospecting around every single one of our open houses. They do circle prospecting around every single one of our just listed, just sold. If your sphere is less than 300 people right now, even as a new agent, send me an email. Because every new agent that we've had on our team, we've developed a system on expanding your sphere. And it's a matter of going through the different aspects of your life and identifying certain things, whether it's your college sports, people that you were connected to, whether it's your Bible study that you do, whether it's your just the different things. So we set up a system that goes through and prompts you to think about the different areas of life in which you have people that have already trusted you, and that it makes it a little bit easier for you to make those connections. So, and then also about the networking to expand your sphere as well.
Can I ask a question to you guys about open houses? So are you, if you're doing, like, when are you doing these opens? If things are like Friday, Saturday. we do
Saturday,
every
well, if
Saturday,
it's
Sunday.
Friday, Saturday, then it's Saturday. If it's Saturday, Sunday, Sunday.
Okay, and so they'll do them for 2 hours
Mhm.
and there still might be showings and stuff
Mhm.
going on, but
Mhm.
you're letting everybody in.
Yeah, my client just said, so we got one going on in Victoria. It's going live in about an hour for $7.95. So awesome house. Oh my gosh. But this one is going Saturday, Sunday because they have prom or something. Saturday, Sunday, open house Sunday. And they said, we don't want to open house because the neighbors, blah, blah. And I said, well, there's 2 reasons why I need to do that open house. One, it's because there's realtors who are as busy as you guys are right now, and their clients might not be available because they're dealing with prom. They're out of town. They're dealing with some sort of kid event or the lacrosse tournament, whatever. We need to make sure that they get in during that open house. And more importantly, and this has happened at every single open house, because it's always a primary objective is to sell that house the best you can. That's our responsibility. They're the ones who sign. It's not for me to get other listings and other buyers. That's secondary. So when they walk in, when somebody walks in, it's guaranteed that about 25% of the people that come to the open house showed it the day before. And out of those 25%, 2 of them wrote offers. Now me, your realtor, who is the very best salesperson of this house by far, that's why you hire me, is having an influence on those people. You know how many of them bring their realtors? None. Because they already wrote an offer. They already did their job. They're showing up and now I'm doing my job to make sure that that buyer is the strongest. And oftentimes their offers will go up, they learn more, they become more comfortable, and then I know the buyer. I mean, how crazy to actually know the buyer.
Right.
So there's tremendous advantage. And there's people who come back and they're like, we're not sure, how many offers you got? And I'm like, we got 14, nobody can compete. They're awesome. Of course, you're not going to say that. We've got a number of offers. I can't tell you exactly how many because I'm trying to keep track of them. But I would highly encourage you, obviously with the quantity of offers we have, I highly encourage you to compete because this is clearly a very, very good house. You have any questions? So, and man, open houses is definitely number 2.
And to your point too, about all of that is true and primary, that you have the influence over the buyer at that moment, the buyer who's not your buyer, it's some other agent's buyer who now you're navigating for your own purposes, your own seller. And at the same time, if there's 8, 9, 10 neighbors in that house, every buyer thinks that's 8, 9, 10 buyers. Everyone does.
Yep.
They don't think it's neighbors. They don't have any idea unless the once in a while the person's like, I'm a neighbor and here's all my neighbor friends.
How many,
And that happens too.
how many neighbor listings have you gotten from the neighbors coming to the
That's
open?
right.
Happens all the time. Neighbors in there and they're like, oh my goodness, this house is, look at all these people.
Yeah, this is what I.
And then they get the flyer the next day and they met you. I mean, you looked angry when you were talking to them, but
Not super happy.
you guys, we're in this business for a reason. This business is unique in the sense that we are independent contractors. That tells you something about yourself, right? You are not team players. You're not someone who's going to sit in a cubicle in an office somewhere because it's not your personality. If you're introverted, then you must be a commercial agent. Apart from that, that is not introverted, but apart from that, we have personality characteristics that make us extremely personable. This is why we're in the business. So do not discount that ever. Do everything you possibly can to get face-to-face with people. Get on a phone call in which they can hear your voice and the inflection in your voice, right? If you're face-to-face and you're angry, find a way to calm down and make sure that that's a good interaction. But never discount the most significant thing. We like people and people like us, and that's the most important thing for us. Take care of them. Right?
I can add a couple lead gen things that haven't been mentioned yet. Agent referrals has become a big part of my business, and a lot of them are agents in Minnesota. They either know the person and they don't want the listing, and they're like, you take this trouble listing, and I say, wonderful. Or it's not specifically their area of expertise. So again, I do some work up on the Iron Range, probably shouldn't, but I have a big network up there. And so now I've got agents up there that are referring me things down here, and then vice versa doing co-listing. So that's about 20% of my listings now. And then old expireds. So I don't do new expireds. I do expireds that expired a year ago each month. And I've scrubbed them to make sure they haven't resold. And then I'm just trying to get them to say, my script is literally, are you ever planning to sell this home?
Ever.
And that's it. Ever. Well, the answer is always going to be yes, right? But there's a but. And then it's just talking about that but. And then we're trying to get rapport. And then I'm just trying to get them to agree to let me talk to them again. And we're setting when that expectation of when I'm calling them next on the first call. And then it goes from there. If they sound interested at all, they get our pre-listing packet at that moment, so that I'm already setting the standard of we are going to meet in the future about listing this property. And that's been really successful. I work them sporadically, I should say, when I need business. I
Do
jump
all
back
you
in.
guys do this pre-listing packet thing?
You do?
I used to, but I.
You do?
I
You do?
stopped.
Yeah, I do like a box, like a
Yeah.
whole
Ours is
thing.
I want to.
Ours is
Is that?
Ours is hard copy and I have it couriered
Yeah.
to their house.
Yeah, I have a little tiny bit different perspective and it's probably not right, because obviously. Take this as a grain of salt. For me, what I present to them in my listing, my pre-packet, which we did a few years ago, will never equate to me being there. So if I have that meeting established, I'm coming extraordinarily prepared and wanting to make that impression, that first and only impression that one time. I don't think that it can go wrong unless you have a poorly organized listing packet. However, you also, before I go to that listing, I'm extraordinarily prepared. I don't know that I was as well prepared when I was sending something out a week in advance, to
Well,
make sure
mine
it's right.
just
Yours is
to-
standard.
Mine
Yeah,
is a
mine is
standard.
standard.
one
So
size
I
fits
think
Just
it's
all.
explain who you are.
Just a little, pictures, names, bios of everybody.
It's not getting into the market or anything.
Nothing about their.
Got it.
Nothing.
Just
No.
about- Good, good. Okay, that helps.
The only thing that's different in mine is
Still not
is
gonna
like a
do it because
welcome
it sounds
letter.
like work.
Yeah, right. That's right. You can send them mine.
So here's another guy. When I come, if I'm better, you can hire me. If not, here you go.
I just wanted to add to the marketing thing. There's, as agents, we all tend to spend a lot of time in being creative about what we can do to be, more successful. Especially new agents, the very first thing, all of us probably would attest that the biggest bulk of our business comes from our first year. And so you should take your database, write it out and fill in the gaps first. So if you don't got Sally's birthday, call her up to, hey, happy birthday, I need your birthday, touch base first. Once you have that complete, then focus on how you can build it out from there. And I think it's for everybody, whatever you're comfortable with. For me, it's the same thing. It's door knocking. I love door knocking. Just pending a $1.2 million property off a door knock. But start with your database first and feed that.
If you guys are willing, if you'd send your pre-listing packet to Melanie or something, so share it.
Yeah, that might even be
Can I
another
just
good
send mine?
idea for.
Yeah.
I think that to your point, what you were talking about database and then the other, and we've all shared some other sources of business. Until you have enough business out of your database, you really shouldn't be concentrating on anything else. You can fill in the blanks like with open houses because open houses can help you build your database. You can fill in the blanks with door knocking because door knocking can help you fill your database. But until you've mastered your database, you shouldn't be doing anything else.
Were you here when Gary came to Minneapolis? Were you didn't go to that? So there was like, I don't know, like two. I accidentally got in.
It's gotta be at least 5 or 6 years.
Yeah,
When
so-
the one thing came.
Yes, when the one thing came and just to make sure we clarify something, this is Gary said to us in person. Okay, as you're building your database, when you get Sally's phone number, you don't wait to get the other 99 to get to the 100 before you start doing the work, call Sally.
Yeah.
Period.
That's right.
So if you have 3 people in your database, you better be calling them and building your database. If you get a 4th, call them, email them, send them something. Do not wait to have a fully established database because it's gonna go. And what's the little lady who took the wagon around? Diana Kokoska said exactly the same thing.
Yep.
Oh, she's tiny. She is. Oh my goodness. She has a big attitude though.
Well, and to that point too, there's very few things when it comes to listings. I'll be honest with you, there's very few things that I'm hard lined on. I'm very much waiting to hear what sellers will say. I'm very much waiting to hear what consumers will say so we can craft our responses to that. When it comes to this lead generation thing, there is a hard line I draw in the sand. And there will be people that completely disagree with me, and that's okay. If you see somebody online on a social media platform telling you, you don't have to make phone calls, you don't have to knock doors. That's for amateurs. You need to learn how to use this new technology to dance or to do silly things online and you'll get all sorts of business. I will guarantee you, I probably do more business than them. And I do that from calling people. People want to talk to you. Your friends want to talk to you. Your neighbors, everybody wants to talk about real estate. And you will get to the point, if you're new, you're going to hate it. Like, oh, for Christ, why are we talking about real estate? Every time we get together, they bombard you. Like, did you see that new listing? I know about it. You know, they're on you.
This is why Zillow will not work.
They will
This
never-
is why
they will never
Redfin
be
will
done.
not work. This is why we need to still be humans, because this is still, it doesn't matter how many times you try to sell a house without someone walking through a house. It's never gonna be the norm. It just will not be the norm. It's never gonna happen, right? We're never gonna phase out because there's just too much involved there. And I'll tell you how old I am in this business, because we started to freak out when the books that came out every 2 weeks with all the listings converted to on the computer. So we're like,
Right.
I don't need this anymore.
How about the open house directory going out of the Star Trip?
Yeah, how about the King's map book? Someone's gonna be able to find
Has
these
anybody,
houses
by the way,
out.
has anybody done it yet on the directions on MLS and Pushy? Does anybody put Google it? Every time I fill one out.
No, I, on the directions, I write Kings, 134 K 6.
Yeah.
But the point is that if you have a relationship with a database, that database will have a relationship with you. People hire who they like and who they feel comfortable with, period. You'll always get the person that hires the biggest jerk around, and then they'll work with you.
Yeah.
And me.
And his relationship was with the database, mine is with the people in the database.
Right, exactly. Yeah, I call them a database. You call them people.
The humans.
Wait,
The humans.
the money signs, no, but really, you have to have a real, I'm kidding. You have to have a real, you have to have a real relationship. And at some point, it happens, and it's different for everybody. At some point, a switch goes off and you become the real estate go-to for your database, for all things real estate, questions about the market. Should, how, you're gonna get people, oh, I got my tax bill and I think it's too high. Can you do a quick market for me so I can contest it? Yep, you're gonna have once you become the go-to for whatever your database is, now you're gonna be able to consistently take a certain amount of business out of that size of a database. And then you just have to ask yourself the question, if I want more business, how can I build my database? That is this entire business. Anybody that tells you it's something else, that is nonsensical. It is absolutely nonsensical.
Well, this was really good stuff. I hate to even end it because I feel like we could keep talking for another hour, but I want to be respectful of everybody's time. Maybe we will continue this in another format at some point. Is there any other last remarks or questions from anybody?
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you guys. so
Thank
much.
you.